Errol Spence Jr. speaks out again and sends a whole lot of people wondering what's going on as he says that he is looking for a new home and has a lot of speculation out there about what that means. Let's talk about that and how we think that may affect the fight next for him in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to be in the 154-pound division where Errol Spence Jr. makes some tweets and has a lot of people wondering what you're tweeting about. And specifically, he shows 3 different tweets. One has an alarm clock on it, which is like time is up. And the next one he said is asked, are you leaving the PBC? Or he says, I have to look for a new home. I have to find a new home first. And to answer a question about when he's coming back. And then he answers some clarifying questions. Before I get into the details of it, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, please accept my invitation to hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell icon so you can be notified if you when we release more videos. And if you're a longtime subscriber and supporter of the channel, thank you so much for your continued support. It really makes a very, very big difference to the channel. But let's get into this because, as you know, anything that is said about the PBC means that the PBC is going broke. If somebody that is a PBC fighter is saying something that can in any way, shape, or form be meant to looked at to mean that they are firing somebody from the PBC or they're leaving from the PBC, that's what the news becomes. So you shouldn't be surprised, or I wasn't surprised, when Errol puts a tweet out with an alarm clock on it, which means, you know, it's an alarm clock. It's time for something. So people say, hey, man, it's time for you to fight. Okay, great. It's time for you to fight. When are you going to fight? And he says, I have to look for a new home first. Now, in the normal world, if somebody was to say, I have to look for a new home first, you would think that that meant that they needed to buy a new house, that they needed to move from one house to another house, and when they're done, then okay, then I'll be ready to go. But of course, that is not how it's interpreted. It's interpreted as if Errol Spence Jr. has left the PBC and or Errol Spence Jr. has fired his trainer, Derrick James. Because as you know, that was the news that was put out all last year, and people for large parts of last year, the second half of last year. And people are real who have been wrong time and time again seem to be quite desperate to figure out a way to make it look as if they weren't wrong about something. Unfortunately, Errol Spence Jr. and Yellow Beezy both come out and say, hey, man, no. In response to a tweet, I won't say the Twitter page's name, but fairly well-known one, put out a tweet that said, what does this mean that Errol Spence Jr. is leaving Derrick James? And Yellow Beezy, who was a friend of Errol Spence Jr., is a rapper from Dallas, Texas, says, man, what is this cap? As in, man, he is not firing Derrick James. Also, Errol Spence Jr. comes out and says to the question, are you leaving the PBC? His answer to that was no. Now, this should have been apparent based off what was said by Steven Espinoza, who is now a consultant with the PBC, as far as what was preventing Errol Spence from getting a fight done earlier, and it was related to his cornea surgery, his cataract surgery, and also related to another injury where he had to get some medical clearance, and he wasn't going to get that clearance in enough time. So they said, go on ahead and, everybody can fight each other. Go find somebody else to fight, and maybe they'll get back to it later. Now, also in that, I have to throw that there's a good chance that the fact that Showtime shut down and Amazon Prime, they have a platform, a new platform, and that platform basically is not going to kick off until, as far as fights, kick off until, a week from today. So their rematch clause between Errol and Terence was for the end of, to take place before the end of 2020, before the end of 2023. With what happened with Showtime, that wasn't going to be possible, along with Errol's injuries. So boom, it goes. But last year, there was a bunch of people that were just assuming that, number one, the PBC was going to go broke. Number two, the PBC didn't have any money for fights. There was no budget for Amazon Prime. Also, Errol Spence Jr. was going to get fired by Jermell Charlo. He was getting fired by Ryan Garcia. He was getting fired by Errol Spence Jr. All of these reports had come out. All this speculation had come out. And almost all of it has wound up not being true. The only thing that really did take place that a lot of people were predicting was that Showtime was going to get out of the business of boxing. Which, quite honestly, seeing as, Showtime and other platforms like that, who are pretty, are HBO and Showtime, that are primarily movie channels. A lot of those guys got out of boxing before, or HBO got out of boxing years ago. Showtime just took them longer until they got acquired and they went through a merger for it to happen with them. But anyway, I'm happy to hear that Errol Spence Jr. is not leaving the PBC, because honestly and truly, where's he going to go? Same thing when people talked about what was going on with Canelo Alvarez, and Canelo was no longer going to be fighting with the PBC, and Canelo lost. The PBC lost Canelo. Well, guess what? That didn't come to fruition either. But hey, man, if we can just keep looking for any old type of thing to support this argument, trust me, they're going to do it. But the question is now, what is Errol going to do when he comes back? There's a chance that it could be against the winner of Tim Tszyu versus Sebastian Fundora. Tim Tszyu and Sebastian Fundora will be fighting on March 30th, 7 days from now, next Saturday, and they're going to be doing that on Amazon Prime. Of course, one of the winner, the WBO, that'll be for the WBO and WBC belt. The WBO already said that the winner has to fight Terence Crawford. So I suspect that would be the leading candidate for the winner. But I would not be surprised at all if Errol did not get a shot at that WBC belt. You just never know what's going to happen. However, I'm glad to hear that he's not leaving Derrick James, that he's not leaving the PBC. And I still just really hope and pray for his full recovery and for him to be in the best physical shape that he can be, fighting at 154 pounds. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. Just wanted to clear that up in case you guys got some of the talk that I got. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.